Welcome, guys, to another best of finals for the Korean Open Cup happening just a couple of days prior to this recording. Apparently, this was a banger of a series, and it's a TVZ, which we know is still the most popular matchup for StarCraft 2 fans. And while it's not my favorite matchup, I would say specifically between these two players, it could be one of my favorite. You have Byun in the top right for Shopify Rebellion, and in the bottom left for now the conjoined team, DKZ. It is Dark. Dark is a super cool guy. He can do all the styles, plays awesome late game TVZ. Byun is one of the more innovative, unique Terran players as far as this matchup goes. I'd say in the other matchups, it's a little bit more of the tried and true Terran versus Protoss, Terran versus Terran, but even then, he might be more prone to doing like a medevac drop opener in TVT than others. But in TVZ, I would say he definitely does more of the odder openers, not the 3CC, not the 111s. And is still actually very much a fan of even the 211 on two bases, although that's something he doesn't do nearly as often as he did when he first came back into StarCraft 2 a couple of years ago. He came back and no one was really doing it, and he was very intent on proving it could be done. And it kind of worked. And now it's something you'd fit into maybe a 3CC build. You wouldn't do the 2CC build anymore. We do have a 2 barracks opener leading into a 3rd barracks. So a 3 barracks Reaper opener coming in here. So a lot of early aggression. Now, Dark is one of the cheesier Zergs as well. So I really think that as far as the players of their races and in this matchup goes, they are more likely to have a interesting dynamic opener than a lot of other TVZs. You know, if I'm thinking about, I don't know, just immediately like lost track of all other humans that have ever existed in the world. I was thinking about Clem versus Cyril. There you go. It'd be so many 3CCs versus regular 3 hatch openers, but not for these guys. So this time around, Dark is not doing a Roach opener, which might have made Byun's 3 racks Reaper a little bit weird, but the way that would work out would have been interesting, actually. Not necessarily clear cut. Now, this case, it is Dark trying to do a normal build. He has not sent his Overlord in a position that would scout, that his opponent has forward 2 barracks. But the timing of the Reaper, and certainly the sight on the 2nd Reaper, thanks to this Overlord, has told him, at least partially, what the opener is. Right now, it might just look like 2 racks, right? 2 Reapers, 2 racks. But there is a 3rd one providing even further Reaper output. And a lot of this does have to do with how correctly you stop the snowball from happening very early on. And then if you do that, if the Zerg player is kind of keen on what's happening and is familiar with how to defend this, and all of them are, it's more of a question as do they remember how to defend it, then it does not look like a particularly great opener. Oh, and a snipe on a Reaper is really good. No punish on the Queen either. Definitely want to grab that Queen before a Transfuse comes up. I'm not sure it's going to be possible. Another Queen's available. Doesn't want to dive too deep. It's a micro battle for sure here. One that Byun has not done perfectly. The loss of a Reaper when you're building so many might not seem like a huge deal, but it really does have to snowball. One Queen about to go down. She's about to have a Transfuse. This one as well. You can save her, save her, save her, save the Queen! Wow, that's not the one that I thought was going to be saved. Okay, well, maybe she'll die, maybe she won't. We won't know. There we go. There it is. And another Transfuse is available too. The fact that this really has not snowballed at all. I mean, the loss of a handful of Lings, 14, I guess a decent amount, because keep in mind, they've made 14 Lings. That's 7 drones they didn't make to defend against this. I'd still say it's pretty good. What they really need, though, what the Zerg really needs is to actually full-on stop this. Because imagine you defend it like you do, like has happened, and then they still kill the 3rd hatchery. I mean, that would just be so annoying, and that's not what you want to have happen. So speed finally kicks in. Dark has a decent amount of Lings, but the Queen's getting over here is going to be a big problem. They're stacking up Transfuses, not focusing on creep spread. But it looks like Byun is forced to respect the speed finishing, the amount of Lings that could be forming, and is going to back away. He doesn't have to worry about his 2 bases being breached, but if you lose all of the Reapers in one fell swoop, you just lose all the map control, and the Zerg player can thrive. So that's what you'd really have to avoid. Even though these Reapers might not be able to win a straight-up fight, they'd have to get some lucky grenades, I would say. Because if Dark commits to a surround, it means he figures he has enough lings, right? Which we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah. Anywho, yeah, if the Reapers commit and they're wrong, totally no longer any pressure on the field. If Dark commits and he's wrong, well, the Reapers are absolutely still scary. So Dark has to keep that in mind too. But at least it's something. At least it is something. Dark looks now pretty pleased at the defense, getting his queens over, spine crawler moved over. That reached. That was a long neck right there. And we go into the mid game. Now the question is, was it enough damage? You know, one of the easier ways of determining that is where the drone count is for the Zerg. Only a 4-worker lead for the Zerg does seem a little poor right now, but they are going to kind of kick in an overdrive within the next minutes, the next 30 seconds, and be at a much comfier level of drones. So I mean, the answer for me anyways, like, I don't actually know who feels more comfortable in this position. Dark really did have to make a lot of lings to defend this. So in total, he made 60 lings. That's a lot of would-be drones. If he had made 40 lings in total, I think he would already be in such a better position. If he could have survived only making that many lings. But that is the problem. That's the judgment call that even pros find difficult to make against Reapers, and in particular, people who are very good with Reapers, which Byun has definitely been heralded as the best Reaper player in the world. Even now, I think the argument still is there. Maybe Maru, maybe him. Now Byun's follow-up attack is ready to go with the Reapers included. And keep in mind, the Reaper grenades can help with the lings. That's what I meant to say, with the lings. It's a little dangerous to move out here without the medevacs, but they are on the way. The Reapers will go home, possibly to defend a potential run-by, and it looks like it's perfectly timed, too. Byun with excellent game sense, certainly experienced with this opener and what could happen afterwards. And that's way too many Marines to handle, especially before that +1 carapace is done, which Dark has managed to fit in this single upgrade to try and help out against this high DPS army, Reaper Marine. But it is not yet done. And a bigger problem is usually the mobility. A Ling-Queen combination can deal with 16 Marines, but will they be in place? The answer right now is no, they are not. Ling's going to the north. Medevacs hitting the main base. Thank you, Mick McAsh. So, it's not going to be the end of the world, but already taking inefficient trades with all the Lings getting into the Marine numbers and getting slaughtered a little bit. But one medevac does fall, thanks to some neat target fire there from Dark, and at least there was a little bit of a punish there. And now Dark looks like he's kind of full swing into the mid-game. Lair's finishing up. Got his macro hatchery desperately needed going into the Ling Banling style that he is. 4th base setup. But Byun also has his 3rd base set up, going into a 4th already. Nice little SimCity wall going down here. And perhaps Dark's biggest problem is a bit of a lackluster creep spread. Again, kind of just coming from that early stage. You could not get your creep spread started as soon as you would like. The Banelings are ready. There's one of their grenades, but still a full surround from the Lings. And that's going to force a pickup, but kind of a late pickup. Widow Mines weren't the most helpful. I mean, they're basically mid-level Widow Mines, I suppose. They kind of helped, kind of didn't. And Byun is not going to find too much success over there, but over here there is a low hatchery and no queens would transfuse next to it. Those queens, they would have helped so bad. Oh, 3 Marines, 2 Marines, transfuses coming in. Oh, at the last possible second. Oh, that was awfully close. They were coming over the 4th base and they made it just the nick of time. Holy shit. I was going to be so shocked if 2 Marines, there was 2 Marines left at that point. They ended up killing the hatchery. That would have felt so bad. Oof. All right, so Dark holds. It's going up to a Hydra end, so some Baneling Hydra. Possibly in lurkers as the game goes on. This game will absolutely go on with 4 bases for the Terran, no all-in, obviously. Byun, usually more of a Terran player who will still be active as the game goes from mid to late. Whereas, and I've talked a lot about this for Cure would be the one to really turtle at some point and only be doing the double-double drops. Byun might still be pushing out as he is, rallying to the front lines as well. 1 or 2 of those Widow Mines got some pretty nice shots. And Byun still has a decent amount of Marines left over. Only 2 Banelings. Tries to snipe both of them, but one, I believe, did connect. Plus just... Oh! Widow Mines, please. plus just the amount of time that Dark has been able to buy to get more Lings in the front lines, more Banelings to build, and yeah, that will force Byun to back away. That was close! And if he had sniped both Banelings basically as quick as possible, that would have really led him to continue being able to micro away from the surround, right? So it's a big difference. Not just the Baneling hit him, it's that he couldn't focus fire it down, the Lings got into the nook and crannies of the Marines, and the surround was effective for Dark. So Byun loses the momentum there, but he does have a decent setup into the mid game, getting those tech labs on the 8 barracks, and again, will probably still be more aggressive than some of the other Terrans who really think that they're best at being defensive, or that is the only option, is that they have to turtle. So does Dark do as well against Byun's style of mid to late game as he does versus some other guys? We're gonna find out literally in this best of 5. As we head that direction, once again, this hatchery under fire finally gets sniped at a less important time, but still only 11 minutes in, having a 3 base economy versus 4. That's a pretty big hit to the Zerg. Also, these Widow Mines being pretty big hits, and all of a sudden, Dark is in a ton of trouble. Those Banelings need much better connections. The creep spread needs to be a lot farther up, and Dark doesn't really have anything else going on besides survival as well. So yeah, okay, maybe he's going to survive, maybe he holds, but we do not have a hive on the way. We do not have a 5th base on the way. Things are still going to be very much a struggle for Dark as this game continues, whereas Byun is kind of in his element, isn't he? His 4th base is down location as an orbital, too. That's how confident he is that his pressure will be effective enough to keep Dark at home. And Dark is probably just going to assume that that's a planetary. You know, the timing is 4th base time. The sensor tower reveals a 4th base. He knows that the 4th base is down, but he can't commit more than a handful of Lings, which wouldn't crack a planetary. But it would crack an orbital, if only he knew. Marauder is now helping to tank on the front lines. Widowmine's once again looking for some good shots. Dark is going to try and take advantage of this position where the Widowmines are not capable of burrowing fast enough. Takes out a lot of the medevacs too, and eventually will push Byun back, but once again, a little weak on that right side. Not enough vision on the right side to alert him fast enough to the incoming drops. The incoming walk, actually. These have, I think, just walked literally across the right side of the map. Not even really dropping. At Dark, he is one of the better late-game Zerg players, in my opinion, because he does actually use spellcasters so quickly. And it's not like our other pro Zergs are not using spellcasters. They have to. It just feels like Dark is really quite eager to get into Infestors. So he will get into Infestors, even if a lot of other Zergs would be going and trying to fit Vipers into the play. But also, if you're going to default to going into Vipers, that's a lot of what late-game Zerg leads up to, but you're facing someone who is really going mass bio, not even that heavy on the factory production. Is that really the best thing to do? A Blinding Cloud might temporarily force the AI to run forward, but is it actually the best spell to have? Parasitic Bomb might take out some of these medevacs, but it's actually the best solution. Or do Fungals, hopefully catching some of these clumps of units while they micro away, the better solution? Probably that one. Byun is moving on to the top tier Terran army with Ghost as well. So it's no longer just big old bio balls. And we do have the option of EMP, of course. So that will be in effect. He has scanned the Infestors multiple times, so he knows what to look out for. And Byun is still continuing to be aggressive at multiple fronts. Main base under attack. Queen's going to take care of that one. Right side under attack and left side as well. Dark close enough to max out that it looks like he is comfortable enough to hold. He has survived perhaps the bleakest moment of the game, but it is tough, man. The Marauders add so much chonk to this that you can't really just hope the Banelings connect as you let them roll on forward, right? It's a lot more complicated than that. And Dark actually is playing with a low Baneling count, possibly on purpose. I think the amount of Banelings he's made in this game is quite low. I can't check it. The Fungals looking for the big group of units. Catch some of it. One tank being obnoxious, but ultimately not a big deal unless they get to the Infestors, though. Yeah, the Infestors are great targets for the tank. In the left side, we still have this bio ball going back and forth, maybe a little overstimmed at this point. Last Baneling gonna get sniped. Not quite, yes, but again, so much damage from the Lings being added on there. And the Hydras, although alone, will be enough. Very few units left over there for Byun. He was also dropping into the main base while getting his 5th expansion. 12 ghosts back at home, by the way. So if Dark is going to eventually get this like sigh of relief because he's finally cleaned up all the drops, he's going to be then hit possibly by just a big army with ghosts. Right? It's like, oh, thank God, I'm done with the drops. Oh shit, there's so many ghosts. That might have been exactly what Dark has just said as he taps out. That almost looked like I knew when the game would end. I did not actually think the game was going to end right then and there, but it makes sense. Byun was winning enough on all the different angles. Dark was not able to get to a 5th base or up to a hive. His creep spread couldn't grow. It was just going worse and worse and worse for Dark. So that is game number 1. Very action-packed and exactly what I wanted to see between these two players. So let's head on into game 2. Game number 2 is going to be on Dragon Scales. In the bottom right, it is Dark. The top left, up 1. We got Byun, who might be post-military age. He was already a bit of an older player, I suppose, kind of when he left for military. When he came back from military, and it's been a year plus since then, putting him as one of the older players. He is still insanely fast. At this point in time, almost all the StarCraft 2 pros are old. And they're certainly old compared to what people thought was an ideal age for Brood War. That much is very true. But not only is Brood War a different game, but the entire ecosystem for StarCraft is completely different. And I would say that most people would argue that there is really no benefit to what they used to do, which is force these kids to live away from their family in a team house and subject to like a hierarchy, right? If you weren't good enough, you're just doing the chores all the time, and forced to play 14 hours a day with an extra 4 if you were actually dedicated. Most people would say that's actually just not very conducive to an effective, pro, all right? But that's what it used to be. That's definitely one of the reasons that there was no way a 24-year-old was going to be able to do, the same thing that Flash did when he was 15, which was join a Kespa team and then thrive there. Very different times. And one of the first guys to really, I think, kind of cement that he didn't have to be super young and he didn't have to be on a team, much less a Kespa team, to be a champion was Byun. This was his first awesome story. Byun was part of Prime back in the day, and Maru was like his little bro. And he was really good, but he never really got to be the best. He was just always really good. And then he disappeared for a while, and I really don't know why. Oh, Roachborn coming in from Dark, so I only have so much time to speak. It was a 2-Rax opener as well for Byun, but only 2. I'm not sure what they're saying, but this is going to be an awkward one. But the Roaches are going to be on the way. And, oh, thanks, Maddox. The SimCity is completely wrong. There's 2 walls. But basically, Byun is he's leaving room for the Autons. But Byun, he was actually teamless when he won GSL, which was still really unheard of. There's a very famous picture of him cheering afterwards, but there's also an kind of famous picture where he was alone in his booth, teamless, with no one to help him. No friend even came in to talk to him. And then his opponent was surrounded by Jin Air teammates. Jin Air being the remaining Kespa League team in StarCraft 2. So it was just this like really crazy difference. And then Byun comes back from military and basically is just as awesome as he was. Not getting the championships quite yet, but people always wonder if he can. It's not insane to think that he might one day still get another championship. But now we have that awkward situation that I was talking about earlier, which is what happens when you do Reaper Opener versus Roach Opener. Well, the Roaches do bully the Reapers to an extent, but Reapers aren't necessarily all that bad when it comes to buying time and adding damage. They're not that bad. And if Byun was doing a committed 3-Rax Reaper, it's possible he'd even have enough Reapers to actually be the unit he still is making. He's still making Reapers. It's a bunker, but still makes Reapers. But in this case, he does go ahead and swap over into his add-ons, gets a bunker on the very front lines, presuming he can actually hold against this. And this could be very dangerous. This could actually be a mistake. Those Lings coming in was probably the big surprise. Byun might have been thinking that this was only a Roach Rush, not with the committed Lings. But the Lings do come in, help out a lot, but that SCV pool is also very helpful. The SCV pool actually being exactly what he needs. And keep in mind, if this was just Roaches, maybe 6 SCVs is okay. 7 SCVs might be okay. But even then's like, this is also with those Links. So 7 SCVs is not near enough for Dark to actually say he can win this game. He is behind in drones as he floods Lings into a walled-off Terran with no third base, very few queens, no creep spread. If Dark tapped out, it'd be very understandable. Like, to a point where I'm really surprised he hasn't. That was way too committed. And it's not that Byun is going to leave him alone. It's not that Byun already expended his army and now he has to rebuild it. He saved up a lot of his army. Those 2 Marauders in the bunker ended up being saved, right? And then he has 2 barracks pumping away consistently too. Those were never interrupted. So the 3rd barracks is added on. So he is going to have follow-up pressure pretty quickly. So that makes Dark choose between, you know, drones and army, which he really shouldn't be able to afford to do. Neil Sonar, not just with 12 months, but also a tier 3. I think he might be one of 3 people at tier 3. That's so super cool. Thank you very much. Dark doesn't really have any teeth on the high ground here. That was just a scout, maybe a little bit of a... Byun was not scared, as he should not be. Had Byun waited for medevacs, maybe Dark could have pulled amazing feats of balance out of his butt. You know, like perfectly balanced droning with perfectly timed roaches. But that is probably unlikely as well. That is just too much army with medevacs. Would have the mobility that the roaches would struggle to keep up against. Byun is just going to go ahead and win the game here. I cannot see how Dark holds. Even if he had Corrosive Biles, I don't think there's any way he could hit enough. And Dark was building a surprising amount of overlords. But you know, it's neither here nor there, really. The point is, he's pretty dead. Okay, so Byun's not going to pull the trigger. He scans and sees an army that a stim would beat, probably, but then he wouldn't kill him, I would imagine. So he's just going to hold off, wait till the last second to stim. There you have it. There's the stim. And this is, that was it. There we go. GG, GG. Dark has had some very, very cool comebacks. But that would have been one of the biggest comebacks ever if he was able to do that. So he is so totally allowed to just, you know, stick to that as much as he did. But well, he was pretty dead. He was pretty dead. Nilsonar, not just with a tier 3 sub, but also gifting 10 subs. What a boss. Thank you very much. Let's head into game 3, guys. In the bottom right, now in his last life, it is Dark. In the top left, he is Byun. So far, his Reaper openers thriving. They did enough damage to control the circumstances in the first game. I don't think they won the game for him, but they put him in, I think, for him, a comfortable position in control of the matchup. The second game, it really is a... how to say, it's a more confusing setup than you might expect, where you might say, oh, a Zerg player goes Roaches against someone who's building Reapers. Well, Roaches beat Reapers. Like, I know that much from StarCraft, and generally that is true. If there's one Reaper and there's 5 Roaches, and they're gonna win. But it really has to do a lot with how, one, scoutable the Zerg player is. Right, so the Terran player knows pretty quickly they're going to go for Roaches, and they can try and set up a defense. So a bunker on the front lines, a bunker behind if they need it. And 2, that they can swap production. And 3, that the production they currently have, Reapers, is actually still pretty good. It's not, you know, they're not going to take a direct, just like, fight. You know, their 2 guns blasting away. They're going to have to micro, they're going to have to throw down grenades. But they are helpful. They buy a lot of time. They add, technically, some AoE. And some crowd control, and then if you do know what you're doing, if you do have that confidence that the pro Terrans do when they open up with these builds, then you can do something like Byun did and go for a forward bunker, which takes away any of the awkwardness of going for a bunker behind. So if we can envision the last map for a second, he puts the bunker behind his barracks, his stim gets sniped, his reactor gets sniped, his supply depots get broken down, the bunker will hold against the actual attack, but it's still kind of more awkward. You know, and Dark, I guess, thought, well, he probably figured his only Roach attack wasn't going to work against someone opening up with Reapers. But he might have figured with enough of those lings being a surprise factor, it might have done the trick. And it even looked for a second that Byun was a bit scared. He was forced to rethink his engagement. But then Byun handled it really well. But Byun is not going to just rely on the double or triple racks opener. He's going into a far more typical 1 racks expand, looking like a third CC without that second gas. And Dark, well, he is going into a normal opener as well so far. Might add on a Roach one in a minute, as he do. He does like that. But not sure. It's up to him, really. There's a third CC for Byun. And Byun double checks for that third hatch. So if it is going to be a Roach attack, it's clearly not going to be one of the fastest ones. And then what does Byun follow up with? Because for Byun, it is more of a question. Generally, a Hellion Banshee follow-up would be very typical. But there's always that chance that Byun does something else. Does look like it's going to be Hellions at the very least, right? And then, okay. What? And then, wait, no, that was a Marine, and it wasn't. No tech lab. Not enough gas for it. Okay. We're gonna wait on that one. Because if he does just build a Marine, he could actually still do a Hellbat attack. It'd be on 3 CC, which isn't the most punishing, but... Oh! That's awkward. So his mule's still gonna die by the looks of it. Yeah, it wasn't worth letting the Lings in, because the Lings just got a full scout. The third CC was already foretold by the lack of supply depots. But the Lings also see the lack of tech labs. And they confirm there's no armory or fusion core. So that's a lot of information. Plus, just generally 6 SCVs and a mule being killed. That was not worth letting the mule in. He should have let that mule die. And then only the mule dies, and everything else is still kind of okay. Although I think the Lings still would have seen the lack of tech lab on the barracks. Well, I'm not sure what Byun's perfect plan was going to be. What he was definitely heading into was going to be. Because he might have had to change up something, but... It's possible he's still doing what he wanted to. 1 Marine to do some Overlord denial, and then Tech Lab for Stim, Liberator harassment, very bare bones harassment on a 3cc build, which would usually be excellent. It'd be very streamlined. It would be economical, with some potential to do damage. But with losing 7 SCVs thanks to those Lings entering in, it's... Yeah, I could have sworn I saw 7. Did the mule count as 1? Well, 6 SCVs and a mule, I guess. It's not as ideal, and Dark's Ling committal to do that also it wasn't so bad. He does still use these Lings to defend against the 4 Hellions, which aren't really super scary. That was a single engineering bay? Oh no, okay, it's 2. And Dark goes into a 4th base, lots of creep spread as well. Neo-Humanity being one of the more interesting maps of the map pool. I actually thought Dark preferred roaches on this one, but maybe I haven't really kept track. It's definitely going to be Ling Baneling. And we are waiting for the stim drop to occur. As Dark grabs a macro hatchery, when he does Ling Baneling, I would say he often grabs 2. But this game and the first game, so far, no. Maybe one of his Zerg buddies finally just like yelled at him. It's like, stop building 2. No one does that. What are you doing? There's really no other Zerg builds 2 macro hatcheries. And nothing else super interesting from the Zerg side. And Ling just got in again? Hello? Not that I had a ton more to scout, to be fair, but... Again, that confirmation on the follow-up, you know, perhaps the timing of the reactor on the starport, maybe it could have been a faster second factory, that type of build from the Terran. It's still information that you don't want to give your opponent for basically free. 25 minerals, not a big deal. Liberator has done nothing. It might have gone across the map and I missed it. It might have just done nothing. And an infestation pit is on the way for Dark, who probably... Oh, yeah, okay. Well, maybe a Zerg did tell him, you know, no one else does this. And he was like, to hell with you, I'm Dark, I do what I want. He goes for the second macro hatch, there it is. But infestation pit, so we might be thinking he can fit in actually even a fairly fast hive. But he does also love his infestors. Doesn't he? What is Apollo doing? What is my cat doing? He's hanging off the edge. What are you... long catting it right now? He's long catting it. Did you guys remember that meme? Long cat? Right up there with the Aurelial. Anyways. We can talk about memes all we want, actually, because there's not too much action as of yet. Only thing I can note is that, oh, Byun is late to his 2-2. His armory's so late. What was up with that? Probably those successive easy loss earlier. Ah, there it is. The first push is happening, and it is going to be not just a high, but also quick into those pathogen glands. Dark loves his infestors. You know why? Because they're a couple of fun gals. Worth it! I don't care there's an action thing happening right now. And Marines are choosing a micro. There we go. Nailed it. That wasn't even really a determining fight, so that's fine. 2 medevacs pick up the Marines, no problem. And the creep gets replanted, basically, instantly. And at the end of the day, I'm a lot more scared for Dark's almost pristine setup here than I am for Byun doing any damage with this attack, right? Dark has creep spread, he's got 5 bases, he's going on to 6. He's got his macro hatcheries, he's got his hive, he's got burrow, overload speed, fungal, pathogen glands about to finish. And Byun has found nothing to do. Of course, he would not find much to do up until this point anyways, because he did open up with 3 CC, right? But you would have hoped to have said something. The Liberator killing a queen or a couple of drones, the Helnians killing more than 4 creep tumors, your build being as perfect without losing those SCVs, right? And instead, Byun, is heading into a late game where Dark, who's very good at the late game, is super comfortable. So comfortable, in fact, he is going to go ahead and send his units across the map. He doesn't feel like he has to keep him at home on creep spread, can actually find the damage, and absolutely he does. Lots of SCVs going down. On the right here, we got a drop, a would-be drop getting cleaned up too, and Byun is getting destroyed. He might hold on, he still has all of his infrastructure and his 4th base about to finish, but 20 SCVs killed and Dark having all this room to fall back to is a bad sign for Byun's future. So far, one of the least motivating games from Byun, right? Those first 2 games were really super cool. They were well done, they were well microed. That first game was just so much back and forth action. You really got inspired. You wanted to go to the ladder and be like, I'm like Byun, as you drop 3 different places. And this one, well, it's much, much, much uglier. Now it's Zerg's time to say, I want to be like Dark. And run Ling Baneling into the 3rd CC. You wish you were as cool as Dark. I wish I was as cool as him. You wish you could grow a mustache like him. I do. I have no idea where drone just went down. Maybe to the Liberator, maybe it died. That's probably what happened. And Byun does recover. Like I said, he still had his infrastructure that didn't get canceled. His 4th base didn't get canceled. And he turned into an orbital again. So he feels he can get away with it. More power to him. But Dark is so much more comfortable than any previous game. The last one was a cheese and that just didn't work out. But the first one, he was so uncomfortable constantly, right from the Reaper opener. This time around, Dark's respecting Byun's potential, of course, but he's got everything he needs as a Zerg player to thrive. Maybe a little more creep spread. Maybe a little more. Even this engagement's not going super poorly. Wouldn't mind reach back and didn't friendly fire as much as it could have. But Dark was quick to rebuilding, has plenty of army behind this. That wasn't all he's got. He's got a couple of infestors sharking around as well, because he already got Burrow, so now Byun has a new fear in this game. And that time the Woodmine did not do so well. Oh, from behind, but a little bit late, a little bit awkward. The theory was so cool right there. But the execution faltered a little bit. Byun at the end of the day still looks like he's going to be forced to evacuate as more infestors come from behind. And there you go. There's that full surround. No Banelings to go ahead and clean things up ASAP. But still, Lings and an Ultra able to take care of it. Wouldn't mind, excuse you. Do not kill the medevac. And here comes the Zerg Horde, I suppose. Not many more fungals left over, but units are dropping out of medevacs and coming out of barracks, which is the most awkward time for them to engage Zerg. They want to be all together with their friendos protecting them, and they cannot get all together. More Ling Baneling comes through, more Ultras on the way, and Dark takes certainly the easiest game of this series, and of course the first game for him in this series. So now at 2-1, game number 4 coming up. I seen any Wojak memes? I have no idea what that is. No, I have not. Finally, a point on the board. You have Dark in the bottom left of Royal Blood. The top right, it is Byun. Just really think Byun's story is so cool, you know? Dark has a established history in StarCraft and was even on Slayers, which, you know, would usually bump him up in my eyes, but he was kind of a... I don't know how to say this without being rude. I didn't pay attention to him as much back in the day. The Zergs on my favorite teams were not my favorite players. Especially since this was around Broodlord Infestor, and, well, who liked Zerg at that point, right? But he was, and he was still pretty cool back then as well. He's been around for a very long time across many different teams. But as far as his kind of mark made in StarCraft 2 history, I mean, it's not as memorable. People are going to remember Dark for being a really cool guy and basically good at everything. And perhaps that he missed out on getting an IEM championship. But he does have a BlizzCon championship, which would usually be just like right up there. People would remember that, right? But as far as the quality of BlizzCon championship matches go, it's like, well, it wasn't that pretty. That was a Nidus ZVZ meta, which, oof, a lot of issues with that one, Dark, I think, deserves a BlizzCon championship. I think he would have won many different times around many different metas, given the right circumstances, right bracket, right state of play, state of mind, all that good stuff. But yeah, that one wasn't pretty. That one was not pretty. But many could say the same. Some of the Byun haters could say similar things about Byun's BlizzCon victory, right? That he abused the multi-racks Reaper openers. I am of the opinion, as a heavily Terran biased person, clearly, that he was the only one who would be overpowered with Reapers. Ergo, it's not so much that the Reapers were the problem, but, you know, it's a very old debate that's not worth rehashing. But then he won GSL as well, and again, that was just historic because of being really I think he was the only non-signed, unsigned player to ever win GSL. So that's pretty cool. He also had, I think, a couple more moments where he did push the limits of Terran, then Dark has pushed the limits of Zerg. And I think that maybe has more to do with the way the races are designed, as we do have a 3CC build from Byun and a third hatch from Dark. No cheeses on the way, guys. But it's kind of hard to say a Zerg player pushed certain angles or certain things just because of the reactive race. They kind of go with the flow. They don't set the course and force the issue like a Terran player would with Reapers or a Protoss player would with Immortal Sentry. What comes to mind is actually he who should not be named pushing the envelope in terms of Lings. And that's kind of what I got, you know, and then whoever designed Broodlord Infestor, whoever perfected Broodlord Infestor first. So there is that. But Byun, he did the Reaper thing. He made those look really overpowered. And then he was, and I think this is less well-known StarCraft history because it was more on the ground level, was more on the community side of things. Byun was one of the first Terrans to really figure out ZVT when Legacy of the Void was released. Byun disappeared for like 2 years before Legacy of the Void, and it wasn't due to military. They military afterwards. And then he came back when all the Terrans were struggling against the 8 armor ultras, right? That's what they were. And they could not figure out how to defeat it, and it was honestly super overpowered. And Zerg was nothing but buff for Legacy of the Void, and I'll never forgive, never forget. And then Byun comes in and is not only so dynamic and action-packed and fast and smart, he also figures out that ghosts are a really good response. And he was one of the first ones to use them really, really well back when we were still a little uncertain about how the dynamic would unfold with steady targeting. But yeah, super, super cool. I mean, these two players, they've literally been around since the beginning. Dark was on Slayers, Byun was on Prime. Dark actually might have been on Slayers the entire time. Maybe been something else before then. I don't remember. But they've literally been around since the beginning. Byun went to military for 2 years and had that weird question mark hiatus for 2 years. Dark has been playing every single year of StarCraft. Every single month. Maybe even every single day. You have to ask him that. And is now awaiting his turn to go to the military. So he's in the Zest position now where it's like perpetually, are you going to go to military? Is this your last tournament? Is that your last tournament? We don't know. So we don't know. We don't know if he'll be at summer, for instance, because one of the things the Korean government likes to do is tell you, well, you're going to be in the military soon, but not yet. And they go, well, can I leave the country? And Korea's like, well, no. But, you know, hold on, don't go anywhere, but also don't go to military yet. So, super cool of them. Very, very typical stuff here from this build, this match, 3cc into the bio. Not even anything particular about the order of operations in the main base of the Terran by the looks of things. 4 Hellions, very typical for that build. And then for Dark, he is actually going into Roaches this time around. And with double Evolution Chamber on the way, he could even be going, of course, into 1-1 Roach attack. So he does do all the Roaches. He does all the Roach things. He can do the Roach all-ins, the Roach cheeses, the Roach surprises. Sounds like a recipe. He can do the 1-1 Roach all-in, and he can use Roaches to supplement his Ling Baneling, right? Mostly Ravager Ling Baneling, and then go into a very heavy... I was going to say a very fast Hive and whatnot, but this Tunneling Claws kind of threw me for a loop. He did go for Tunneling Claws versus Hero in ZVP, which is still relatively rare. I mean, it's still very rare. ZVZ is Tunneling Claws, right? Nothing else, really. But ZVP still kind of made a little more sense to me. ZVT Tunneling Claws might be the rarest. Unless I'm forgetting some particular meta in history, which is very possible. Actually, maybe against mech, maybe. But of course, we don't have mech, so... Still, I'm going to say this might be the rarest. The point is, Dark is going to be experimenting with it. He is not getting Burrow. Wait a minute. Hold on. I might be over analyzing this. Did he mean to get Roach Speed? He must have meant to get Roach Speed. Because he's not getting Burrow. Huh, he must have clicked on it. It's T and G, isn't it? Well, no, those are actually kind of close to the keyboard. Well, that's awkward. So his Roaches will continue to be slow, but they'll have the graphical effect of Tunneling Claws, which Byun might notice and go, oh shit. And then, okay, well, he's gonna get Roach Speed now and Burrow. I'm gonna go ahead and still say that this is a mistake though, right? Because you've shown your opponent you have Tunneling Claws because of the graphical change on the Roaches, if they're paying attention. But you don't actually have them until Burrow is done. So, you know, unless it's some like 100 billion IQ scare tactics going on. Like, yeah. The upgrades went first and foremost into Lings, but no Banelings were added. So this is 1-1, but not with the Roaches and not with Roach Speed. Byun did not realize what was going on the entire time that I was talking and actually runs into a player who was maxing out. Byun might have thought that he was playing a more defensive style or going purely into Lings, and he just ran face first into everything. So whether Tark made a mistake or not doesn't matter. He just got a huge win, and might just literally win right now. That is still a lot of units coming forth, so even as the Ravagers were temporarily a little weak, that's why the Marines went after them, they weren't weak enough. And the Roach numbers are getting thin, the Ravagers are getting a little vulnerable once again, but Byun still doesn't have enough, maybe, question mark, more reinforcements coming in for Dark, does he actually have enough? Not quite, yes? Yes? No? No, he's not gonna break Byun. But damn, that was close. 11 SCVs go down, tank barely saved, and now Dark is gonna go ahead and use those Roach Tunneling Claws, because why not? I mean, you have it. I'm still not certain it was on purpose. I'm still really not, but you have it. You eventually may have wanted to go there, but then just took your sweet time. I don't know. But Byun did notice, and he did build missile turrets. So that also might have been why he thought it was going to be a more defensive style of play, or not all-in-y, not attacking. Harassment style of play. There we go. He might have actually figured, oh, Tunneling Claws? You're gonna, you know, burrow and be annoying, and I'm gonna punch you in the face. And then Dark was like, just kidding, I actually do have a giant army. Either way, Byun would have been so much better off if he didn't accidentally run into a giant Zerg army. I think, you know, we can say that about a lot of StarCraft situations, all right? Byun, I think, he'd even be holding. He would straight up be holding instead of desperately holding if he did not run into Dark's army like he did. But now the hold is very much in question. SCVs have to be pulled once again. And Dark is about to finish up his 2-1 for his roaches. As Byun, well, actually just loses all of his army anyways. So Dark would have been even more effective against the remaining Marines. But then they all died. GG. That was a fun one. Just all of a sudden, everything happened, and I had to really think through that more than I was expecting, you know? Without the tunneling claws in there, that would have been such a more obvious, you know, type of game. Oh, it would have been like, oh, okay, he's going to max in 1-1 roach push. But the tunneling claws really threw me for a loop. Perhaps they did for Byun too. And, well, Dark's mass roach play ended up working out. So, all right, 2-2 it is. Game 5, our last game of the series coming up. Okay, game number 5. It's what everyone wants, right? In the bottom right, it is Dark. In the top left, it is Byun. Dark must be one of the most consistent players in the Open Cup, Korean Open Cups as well, right? He's the most consistent player for IM Katowice, getting 5 through 8th place, typically, frequently. And in the Open Cup, he does seem to make it to the finals, frequently. I'm not sure how many he's won. It's not as many as here, Marine. That's pretty much for sure, but... Solar, I think, was the champion of the Koreans for a while in terms of winning the Open Cups, but Solar's backed away a little bit on that one. Dark might be replacing him. Let's look into the stats. Byun has always been an online champion. I mean, he was dominating online cups and playing in all of them. His schedule was insane. Like, not just wow, impressive, like, are you okay type of insane. But he was Byun, he did what he wanted, so. And fortunately, people liked his stream, so that was also really good. And he won so many online cups that if he ended up being the #1 winner of online cups with a prize pool of $100 or more, something like that. I know that sounds like very specific, but keep in mind the years of StarCraft and how many cups I had over $100. If he was the most winningest player of that, I would not be surprised. Because he was so active for Legacy the Void when it came out. So active. The amount of Alima leaks he won, I mean, forget about it. Anywho, Byun going for a CC first, figuring he can get away with it. Basically, as far as I can tell, there really isn't a hard counter for the Zerg against this. The hard counter is a proxy hatch, and how many Zergs do that? Dark technically has, but not frequently. So of course, Byun's going to go with the command center first. He might still have some awkwardness against, for instance, a 3-base Ling Roach attack, but that has more to do with his follow-up, which is a 2-on-1 follow-up by the looks of things. If he had gone into a factory and a starport and Hellion Banshee and scouted that he was being attacked, then he could still hold. Going into the 2-1-1 and then, you know, maybe picking up his Marines at the wrong time. That's how that gets awkward. We're right. It is 2-1-1. Dark going for his 3rd hatch. Decent amount of Lings on the way, though. He is trying to kind of surprise Byun here. He saw that was a CC first. And because they play each other so often, it's possible he's already figuring that it might be a 2-on-1 follow-up. Now, he hasn't confirmed it, but seeing 2 Marines instead of 2 Hellions is already, you know, that's already pretty good. And what's weak about 2-on-1 is that your initial starting units are poor. There are a handful of Marines, and not even that many. When they get up to a number of 12, and they stack up on the ramp or up against a corner, they're pretty okay. But if you get a surround, that's exactly what Dark is looking for. If you get a surround of these Marines, the number is just so low. Byun's saying, I'm busy, stop doing that. And hopefully he wasn't typing because he does need a micro right here. It looks like the micro will be good enough. That is a potentially game-winning moment, guys. Byun, being one of the biggest fans of the 2-1-1, no doubt knows about this response that has killed him even. If I really think back 7-8 years ago, it's probably killed him. And it might still kill him. It's certainly doing a lot of damage. All of these trades means that Byun's actual attack is super late. Yes, Dark had to make Lings instead of drones to do this, but he got 7 SCVs, he got a delay in the command center production and the mules, he killed Marines, so he's also trading out on the army, which means that Byun's not gonna just go, oh, okay, that sucked, I lost SCVs, let's go ahead and immediately counterattack, which would be threatening. Now, Dark can go ahead and produce a couple of drones for he has to worry about being dropped. So, very effective opener. Didn't kill him, as it sometimes has. In the past, when the 2-1-1 is still being figured out, this Ling counter was extremely popular, and it was killing a lot of 2-1-1ers, and then 2-1-1ers figured it out. And it has a lot to do with the micro, of course, but also the anticipation. You know, when 2-1-1 was developed, I'm pretty sure a lot of Terran players were literally leaving. They were, like, rallying the Marines here. Like, what are you gonna do? And they were getting surrounded. Like, Pikachu face. Nah. They're smarter than nowadays, so Byun will hold. He will live, but again, he's not really getting to execute his build to the tippity-toppest degree. Dark has been able to mess him up. Just literally mess him up. So Byun's trying to recover and get his build really going. Once he has 16 Marines, that'll be the build he was supposed to be doing at 5 minutes. Now it's at 6 minutes, whatever it is. Ooh, Byun is choosing to go for a 2-base all-in on Gresvan. It is a large map, but it has a particularly vulnerable area for the Zergs to defend. Put your tanks over here. It can be difficult for Zergs to defend this location. And we know that's a 2-base all-in, or very heavy committal, shall we say, because the single engineering bay, no 3rd CC. Dark does not know this, but he has to keep it in mind, because while the 2-1-1 off 2-base and the 2-base follow-up are not super common, they really have been making it back into the fold, especially when it comes to Byun. There is a point where this build probably wasn't done for an entire year by anyone, maybe even longer. But it's, you know, it's all over the place now. I think Maro also was a big fan of doing these types of openers and fitting in these 2-base attacks, especially in the last map pool. This one a little less so. So if Dark's wary of this, then, you know, build army, right, at the right time. And specifically building roaches. Roaches are a pretty neat response to a 2-base committal from the Terran. And Ravagers, you know, of course, being best. As long as you make them at the right time. I mean, if you're going up to 85 drones in a hive, but you have a roach horn, that doesn't solve all your problems. But if you build roaches and your Ravagers, you can split them up to just perfectly defend against the double drops, the double-double. Hopefully, anyways. Sometimes you can see roach players miss splits against the drops, and it gets a little awkward, but hopefully. So you can just stack them here, put Lings up here, have your queens over there, like it's not too bad of a thing. And then you just have corrosive bios to buy all the time in the world. You have the corrosive bios take care of the tanks. The Marines can't find themselves blitzing on a Roach Ravager as much as they can on Ling Baneling if the Baneling number's not high enough. It just creates a lot of difficulty for the 2-base player. Now, Byun, possibly because he saw that it was a Roach-based play and because he saw that Dark was taking this seriously, he had units on the field and wasn't taking any damage from his 2-1-1, his delayed 2-1-1, has actually gone into a 3rd CC. But make no mistake, this is a really awkward transition. I swear to God I wasn't wrong, guys. Like, 1 engineering bay is a sign of a committal. You can absolutely go into double engineering bay 3rd CC after a 2-1-1. That was the build for the longest time. He wanted to surprise his opponent. If not surprise him, then at least outplay him. And I think that he probably just realized that wasn't going to happen. He has to be more worried about what Dark is doing than Dark has to be worried about what he's doing. And Dark is going for a 1-1 Roach committal. So Byun has to now be the one to recognize that and defend against that. His tank count has been growing steadily, so that's the good news. You build tanks with this follow-up anyways and just continue building tanks to see roaches. But he doesn't have any bunkers, and I'm afraid that might be just a little too late on trying to build some SimCity. This is a bit awkward. Mostly the Ravagers on one side. They're very vulnerable. Roaches going up on the right where they don't jump on the tanks fast enough. So they just took a billion shots to the face, and that was probably the most awkward type of engagement that Dark could have taken. I mean, that was Just call a spade a spade. That was pretty bad. He probably thought that he had gotten the jump on Byun more than they actually did, because Byun was moving over a little bit to the right side. But again, the Ravagers alone, vulnerable, being pounced on by the Marines, they get just torn apart, and they're basically physically rejected. They physically cannot pass the Marines to get to the tanks to corrosive bile them fast enough. So then the Roaches are like, well, you cleared out the tanks, right, guys? And they're just getting shelled on by 3 tanks. 4 volleys will obliterate most Roaches. So yeah, Byun's supply wasn't too terrible for the point of that engagement. So maybe it wasn't going to be the easiest engagement no matter what. But I tell you, that was not the ideal engagement for the Zerg player. No. And now, Byun, I would say, is kind of recovered from a potentially awkward follow-up. 4th CC is on the way. 2-2 is on the way. A little behind his opponents, actually. And now he just needs to maybe add the 2nd factory, which he already did. There you go. So that would be the weaknesses of following up the 2 base into a 3rd, is that your 3rd is late, your 2nd engineering base late, and you definitely don't have 2 factories very fast. But now he's got all that going on, so maybe he'll do okay. Dark, yes, was committing to a 1-1 Roach push, but it's not like you instantly die if it doesn't work. And now we even have a little bit of the base trade. Ooh, nice pickup. Very important pickup on 2 tanks, going right to the high ground as well, as Byun recognizes the situation, knows it's going to be a base trade, loses 1 tank, and actually positions these very poorly, perhaps, if Dark is paying attention anyways. Yeah, he is. So both tanks get taken down anyways. Only shelling once or twice. Not ideal right there. But the amount of Roach Ravager left over is looking awfully small. Army on the right side, reinforcements on the left, tank sieged up, and SCVs still able to be pulled, honestly. 4th Command Center is canceled, but if the Roach Ravager dies, is there enough back on this side of the map to replace it? Roach is actually rallying instead of defending back at home, so Byun redrops into the main base and goes after the upgrades, but they finished! 2-2 is done for the Roach Ravager in the nick of time, and Dark is once again back on the offensive. He was collecting his army, building it back up faster than Byun ever could, and Byun, down almost 100 supply, is forced to disengage entirely, go up to his main ramp, and hope to God that he can hold on top of his production and deal a tremendous amount of damage on the other side of the map, which does not look likely. Dark's army might not be taking the most efficient trades as it tries to go up this ramp, but it eventually will bust up, get on top of that tank, and take it down. Dark supplies still looking very, very solid as well. Byun, he really tried to read this game correctly, but the base trade maybe just wasn't what he expected. If his tanks were already pre-siege in the natural, for instance, and all of his reinforcements going over there, I think it's a very different game. But they were all over the place. His drops couldn't be controlled well enough and do damage fast enough, and Dark did have that 2nd round of Roach Ravager to go with 2-2 finished, which is also kind of a kick in the nuts. And so he will win another EPT Korean Open Cup. GG's. Very fun best of 5, guys. Hope you enjoyed watching it. Please like, subscribe, blah, 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 all that stuff for YouTube. And I will see you guys for more StarCraft in the future. Bye.